Now, we bring you Killer Wives, episode 57. The Ambush. These are the case facts against Amanda Hovanek, who murdered her own husband. 3378205. Wapakoneta, Ohio, famous for its beauty, the birthplace, home, and museum of John Glenn the astronaut, but also made famous for the murder of one Mr. Timothy Hovanek.
On April 24, 2022, Timothy Hovanek vanished from his designated location in the small town of Wapakoneta, Ohio. This prompted immediate concern. Within just 4 hours of initial report of disappearance, local law enforcement, along with the FBI, began actively investigating the case as the husband's missing person situation. Now, that's lightning speed. Normally it takes 72 hours for somebody to be brought with the FBI on a case of missing persons. But why in this case? You see, this swift response raises questions. What circumstances led to such urgency? And why was it not his wife who took the first step in filing the report? As we near episode 60 of Killer Wives, I'm captivated by the unsettling implications of vows like, "Until death do us part." And it's strange how we invest in securing our homes with high-tech locks and security systems. Yet often we overlook that our greatest danger might be the very person we share our lives and our beds with. In this episode of Killer Wives, a husband unknowingly trusts his wife. Now he is completely unaware of the imminent betrayal and danger around him.
You're watching MNN, the men's channel.
Rightfully so, danger and marriage are opposite ends of the spectrum. But conflicts often happen in marriages. Most of the time, these disagreements do not lead to thoughts of harming one's partner. Human relationships can break down in both familiar and new situations. Now, this is illustrated by a troubling incident between the couple that started during a 2-year trip to South Africa. This story explores betrayal. Betrayal amidst marital problems, showing how conflict can travel from Africa to the United States. Now it follows a woman who dedicated herself to love and commitment, but makes choices that lead her into darker aspects of human nature, just like in any of these Killer Wives cases. These decisions change her life and the lives of those around her forever. The narrative highlights the fragile nature of commitment and the serious consequences that can arise during difficult times in our lives, reminding us of the importance of loyalty and how our actions affect others when faced with challenges.
The Hovanek marriage began to decline during what seemed like an exciting family adventure in South Africa. However, this was not a typical vacation. It was a duty filled with assignment. Mr. Hovanek was selected by the U.S. State Department for a 2-year role in this vibrant country, known for its stunning landscape and diverse culture. Mr. Hovanek had a great opportunity to join a new journey with his family, allowing his wife and children to come along. However, beneath the lively atmosphere of their new home, trouble was brewing. His wife was feeling increasingly unhappy, even though their family appeared united on the outside. What started as a small feeling of discontent was growing stronger, leading to a chaotic situation that would change their lives forever and reveal the weaknesses in their relationship in unexpected ways. In a troubling trend called Killer Wives, we see a disturbing story unfold. A wife carefully plans her husband's downfall while appearing unaware of the damage she causes. Only after her actions lead to serious consequences does she realize the choices that have taken away her freedoms. The loss of freedom and the slide into waking nightmare begin one evening. While Mr. Havenek worked hard in South Africa, his wife craved emotional closeness with another man, a charming local named Anthony Theodoro. This desire was not just a passing thought. It was a deep need for comfort and stability. She was looking for escape from a relationship she felt was empty, leaving her alone and unfulfilled. On the other hand, there is no sign that Mr. Havenek had similar feelings. Often a spouse who struggles with childhood issues about marriage only confronts these problems after tying the knot. It is usually after saying I do that they start to miss the freedom they lost, the brief romances and adventures they think are slipping away in their commitment. Now, there are many people who wonder why some women hesitate to leave their marriages or seek divorce even after their emotional connection to their husband has faded. The reason for this are complex and involve deep emotional struggles and psychological issues. For some women, a possessive mindset can develop, making them see their spouse not as a partner, but as property, someone to control, fix, or punish. This distorted view can create a strong sense of entitlement, leading them to believe that their partner's happiness is less important than their own desire for control or revenge. As a result, these women may hold on to the relationship driven by a need to dominate rather than appreciate mutual respect and emotional fulfillment. Additionally, some women think that if they cannot have the ideal relationship, no one else should have their partner. This belief breeds a deep sense of betrayal and leads to a desire to see their spouse leave the marriage without wealth, children, or security, essentially teaching a harsh lesson about the consequences of upsetting them. Such conflicting emotions trap these women in a relationship focused on control and revenge rather than real love, creating ongoing pain and conflict. Psychological research explores the complex situation of Ms. Havenek's secret affair. Although these relationships are often wrong, they can serve as lifelines for people looking to escape what they see as unfulfilling marriages. This situation resonates especially with those who feel inadequate in their current commitments. As the story unfolds, it reveals the fragile nature of love and the limit to which a woman might go to find emotional fulfillment, showing both her vulnerabilities and the risk she faces in her search for a connection despite the harm it may cause to her relationship. Ms. Havenek found herself caught in a secret affair with Mr. Anthony Theodoro. That all being while her husband, Mr. Havenek, remained unaware. The saying, "the wife is always the last to know," took on a new meaning, as Mr. Havenek lived his life oblivious to his wife's betrayal, especially during his time in sunny South Africa. But after 2 years abroad, all good things must come to an end, and the family moved back to America with their 3 daughters who had grown a little bit older by then. But they were still burdened by the unspoken issues and failings of the marriage. Soon after returning home, Ms. Havenek unexpectedly filed for divorce, shocking her husband. During their time away, she had clearly chosen to be with her South African lover, leading to a shift in her feelings and a break from her loyalty to Mr. Havenek. Now, however, she remained committed to their 3 daughters. The idea of co-parenting with Mr. Havenek vanished, as she made it clear she did not want to share her children with him. Describing her actions as parental alienation does not fully capture the chaos that unfolded. Her strong desire to cut ties between her children and their father was driven by deep resentment, setting the stage for an unavoidable and bitter conflict. In the 2 years after they moved back to America, Miss Hovanek started a fierce custody battle that quickly spiraled out of control. Starting in December 2021, she repeatedly denied Mr. Hovanek his court-ordered visitation rights, ignoring the legal agreements they had made. This defiance created a tense and emotional situation, leading Mr. Hovanek to file several motions in court to hold her accountable. The conflict between the couple reached a turning point in April 2022. A frustrated judge, tired of the ongoing dispute, ordered that the children could visit their father. This decision showed how urgent the situation had become and the significant impact the fighting was having on everyone involved. The judge's ruling not only restored Mr. Hovanek's parenting rights, but also named him the residential parent and legal custodian for a significant 2-month period that summer, starting in May. However, Ms. Hovanek did not plan to follow the judge's decision or keep any promises made to her husband. In fact, her strong feelings led her to prefer imagining him dead rather than allow him those important 2 months with their daughters. In custody disputes and inheritance fights, it's common to see a mother whose actions may not be totally good-hearted. Ms. Hovanek's frustration with her husband's strong wish to be an active father grew alarmingly under the surface. Society often punishes fathers who are not present, leading to a pattern that criticizes men trying to be involved in their children's lives, as if the children belong solely to their mothers. This situation worsens the existing divide between the parents, making the future uncertain for the kids, who become mere tools in a clash of wills.
You're watching MNN, the men's channel.
The custody battle between the Hovaneks, once believed to be resolved, took an unexpected turn when the judge surprisingly favored Mr. Hovanek. This decision triggered anger in Ms. Hovanek, revealing darker motives between her calm exterior. Unable to accept her loss, she felt drawn to a similar plan she had created long before her husband's mysterious death. Now, her chilling idea was to hire a hitman. That's right, I said a hitman. Immediately after returning from Africa, these were her first thoughts. But only a year later, she could not go through with them. So you see, however, she soon found finding someone willing to commit such a terrible act harder than she expected. For many women caught between middle and upper class, dealing with complex relationships often lead to secretive attempts to hire such services. Now, the sad truth is that trying to hire a hitman often ends in disaster, including arrest and exposure, which can ruin even the most desperate plans. But if only authorities had stepped in earlier in the troubling story, perhaps we wouldn't be mourning the loss of Mr. Hovanek today.
You're watching MNN, the men's channel.
Ms. Hovanek faced serious legal troubles, and her attempts to avoid the judge's court proceedings were falling apart. She felt a heavy burden of desperation and realized she could no longer depend on others for her future. In a moment of panic, she called her lover in South Africa, her voice shaking as she asked him to send her a vial of animal tranquilizer by mail. The scarcity of acquiring such a rare substance hinted that he likely had connections within the animal care industry, or possibly he had procured it through dubious and illegal means. A month later, he soared across the skies to the United States, his heart brimming with excitement and dreams of the new life they would create together. Yet, he remained blissfully unaware of the deep, unsettling shadows that lay hidden within her heart, casting doubt on their hopeful future together. I can't help but wonder if I would really want to start a new life with someone who coldly planned to end a love she once cared about. When her lover arrived from South Africa, Miss Hovanek revealed her dark plans to him, sharing every chilling detail. Together they dug deeper into the twisted scheme that would frighten anyone. United in their grim goal, they set out to use a dangerous substance powerful enough to kill even the strongest elephants. In their hands, it would be a tool for destruction, aimed at taking her husband's life in a bold daylight attack we like to call the ambush. Before starting her dark plan, Hovanek's wife knew she needed to dig a grave. She wanted to hide this grave in a quiet part of land that held special memories for her. This land, once owned by her grandfather along with a cabin, was where she had happy times as a child. She remembered playing in slippery rocks and shallow creeks, which made her feel at home. She may have wrongfully thought her actions were right. However, after the day, this land would no longer remind her of those joyful memories. It would become the final resting place for a man who challenged her in a custody dispute. Surrounded by familiar trees whose gnarled roots intertwined like the secrets of her past, and overgrown bushes that had enveloped the landscape in a wild embrace, the atmosphere was heavy with unspoken tension. The tranquility of setting belied the impending horror that hung in the air, casting long shadows under the fading daylight. Each rustle of leaves seemed to hiss warnings, while the gravediggers engulfed in a palpable sense of dread. They felt the weight of their grim task. A piercing awareness lingered with every shovel of dirt as they wreaked havoc in a place once filled with innocence, now marred by the grim realities of their future actions.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
My study of the Cases in Killer Wives series, I can say that when a wife decides to kill her husband for personal gain, it becomes a selfish act. Now, this decision can blind her to the harm she causes to those around her. Friends, family, and acquaintances often find themselves caught in her lies, facing unexpected troubles. Now, in her pursuit of personal benefit, these innocent people may suffer whether they realize it or not. This series serves as a warning for wives who might follow in these women's footsteps. Now, this always leads to severe consequences like prison, or even worse, the death penalty. Miss Hovanek didn't involve her long-distance lover into her plans until later, when she would decide to go further. With careful planning, she got her mother to help her in the scheme. Her mother played a vital role as a driver, putting her in the middle of the plot, whether she wanted to do it or not. Now, the two women worked together to distract her husband on the day they intended to carry out their plan, keeping him unaware what would happen. They created a false sense of normalcy, weaving lies to hide their true intentions. Now, if anyone asked about her ex-husband that day of his going missing, they would hear a carefully crafted story designed to cover up the darker reality beneath.
In the complicated situation of her life, a mother decided to pour her 3 young daughters into her scheme. She planned to use them as innocent helpers, just as she had done with her husband in the past. What could lead a mother to involve her own vulnerable daughters in such a deception? The girls were unaware of the danger around them, became tools in their mother's plan. Their innocent presence was meant to distract their father unexpectedly. On April 24, 2022, the sky turned dark and cloudy, creating a stark contrast to the sunny afternoon that had reached a warm 81 degrees earlier in the day. The wind blew gently at 22 miles per hour from the south as Mr. Hovanek prepared for what seemed to be a typical family exchange. However, he was unaware that this moment would unfold into something much more complicated. He thought he was simply returning his 3 beloved daughters, who brought joy and laughter, back to their mother, waiting at her mother's garage door. The scene looked simple, but it hid a dangerous intent behind her calm face. At the same time, in the lobby of Mr. Hovanek's hotel, the warm rays of the setting sun filled the room with light. The happy laughter of his daughters created a cheerful atmosphere, reminding him of the wonderful time they had shared over the weekend, filled with hugs, games, and stories. As they left the brightly decorated hotel room, excitement filled the air. Mr. Hovanek walked with his three lively daughters. Their joy brought smiles from the hotel staff, who enjoyed watching the family. They headed towards his shiny dark car, which sparkled in the evening light. It was not just a car. It held the last memories of their happy time together, waiting to be sealed inside. As he fumbled with his keys and turned on the ignition, the dashboard lit up and his dash cam began recording, a feature he had added to capture his journeys. He did not realize that this camera would soon record something far more disturbing than a simple trip. As Mr. Hovanek drove down the winding roads to his destination, he looked forward to returning home after a short hotel stay. Just before he reached a calm cul-de-sac, his phone rang. It was Miss Hovanek and her mother, telling him they were waiting by the garage. Everyone felt excited about their plans. The dash cam captured a warm moment. Miss Hovanek and her mother, Anita Green, stood outside the house, smiling and eagerly looking for Mr. Hovanek as he approached. This is the actual picture of them standing in front of the garage prior to the murder. Miss Hovanek walked confidently towards the driver's side of the car. Her cheerful voice called out to the children, "I have a surprise for you inside. Go with your grandmother." The children ran inside with bright eyes, while their grandmother helped guide them, sharing in the secret. Then, Mr. Hovanek's voice cut through the sound from the dash cam. He sounded defensive and confused as he asked his wife, "What the heck are you doing?" The mood changed as the situation unfolded, suggesting he was trying to protect himself from an unexpected attack.
As the car's engine hummed softly, Miss Hovanek was trying to unfasten his seatbelt. Suddenly he felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. He turned to see his wife, Miss Hovanek, holding a syringe. With a serious look, she pressed the needle into his skin and quickly emptied the syringe. Confused and surprised, he said, "Did you just assault me?" Without his knowledge, she had just injected him with a potent tranquilizer meant for large animals. Now soon the drug would take effect, making his limbs very heavy and clouding his thoughts. But Miss Hovanek was determined not to give in easily, especially not to his wife. Fueled by adrenaline and his instinct to survive, he clumsily unbuckled himself and stumbled out of the car.
You're watching MNN, the men's channel.
Panic washed over him as he realized what was happening. "Get away from me," he said. "Get off of me." He shouted, his voice filled with fear as he tried to put distance between his wife and himself. Now, the tension in the air was thick, creating a heavy silence during this unexpected confrontation. At that moment, Mr. Hovanek tried to get into the dashcam view, using it to his advantage. The video captured a tense scene. His wife pulled at his shirt as he struggled to use his cell phone. Likely he was trying to call the police at that moment. And she was clearly anxious and trying to stop him from making that call, realizing that her plans were falling apart. Her worst fears were about to come present. You see, she feared what might happen and worried about going to prison. She struggled with the father of her children while the tranquilizer began to work. Now, as he grew weaker and weaker, until she managed to knock the phone out of his hand. Then she pulled him down, holding him around the neck, until he went limp and unresponsive on that cold concrete driveway.
Meanwhile, inside of the house, his daughters remained blissfully unaware of the unsettling events unfolding just outside, and their mother and grandmother wanted to keep it that way. The residence was isolated, positioned in such a way that no distant neighbor could glimpse the activities transpiring on the garage side. Their grandmother skillfully kept the girls engaged, weaving stories and activities to distract them, while she waited news from her daughter, confirming that the grim task had been completed. To the girls, life was normal. They believed their father had returned to his hotel room on his long drive back home. Meanwhile, outside, Miss Hovanek stood in the dimming light, a sense of finality washing over her as she surveyed the scene. No one saw her, and the deed was accomplished. She reached down to the ground to recover her husband's cell phone. Deliberate in her actions, she also removed his smartwatch to erase any trace of his last movements, to sever any possible ties to the final location. With a slight trim in her hand, she turned off his vehicle engine, the quiet heartbeat of the car coming to an abrupt end. The dashboard camera blinked offline, its recording ceasing as she acted, unaware of his presence or narratives captured moments prior. This video would come back to haunt her later. Her actions hung heavy in the air, yet she felt detached from the reality. After struggling to place the father of her children's body on a tarp to make it easy for her frame to drag his lifeless body into the garage, she calls her lover with an urgent summons to come over. Together they would load him into the back of the car as they prepared to transport their former problem to the hastily dug grave in the secluded woods. The atmosphere was tense as the trio returned to Miss Green's house, where her daughter had devised a meticulous plan to dispose of her husband's car. She would travel nearly 55 miles with her lover in a follow vehicle to a community in Dayton, Ohio. She aimed to stage the scene as if he had vanished into the bustling city, possibly the victim of an ambush on the way back home or sheer misfortune. As each moment slid by, a profound sense of relief enveloped her like a warm blanket. The two lovers were retracting their steps back to Wapakoneta, Ohio. The burdens of their somber mission, heavy and foreboding, had temporarily dissipated into the twilight. Yet lurking in the corners of their minds, an unsettling question remained. Had they genuinely fulfilled their dark purpose, or was a true horror still lurking just ahead, waiting to unfold in the shadows?
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
Ms. Hovanek's plan was about to fall apart as she had feared. A troubling situation was developing in her husband's Hovanek's room. Now, he was known for his strong presence and confidence, but did not check out at the expected time. And usually this wouldn't be a big deal. Housekeeping usually opens an unclaimed room, checks for guests, and starts cleaning. But this time was different. Why? Because when housekeeping staff opened the door to what would have been an empty room, they found an unsettling scene. His clothes were laid out as if he was planning to leave, but he was not present. But the bigger thing was Mr. Hovanek's belongings were neatly arranged, but among them were many sensitive U.S. government documents from the job at the State Department. Now, these documents were either top secret or classified. These classified papers needed strict confidentiality and were scattered across the room. This changed the situation from a simple hotel stay to a very serious concern. Immediately, the case turned into a full-scale FBI investigation. They wondered why Mr. Hovanek had gone. Then the next day, Ms. Hovanek received a shocking news. The local police began a missing persons report, which soon led to a federal probe due to the documents found in his hotel room. This began definitely to make her nervous. Feeling heavy dread, she realized that she had not known about her husband's failure to check out of the hotel room, and the fact that he'd left very sensitive documents in that room. A cloud of suspicion began to surround her, and she felt she had no way out. Forensic specialists carefully received the covered vehicle back at the garage. They searched the interior, checking every corner for clues about Mr. Hovanek's disappearance and why the vehicle was left there. The atmosphere was tense, and each investigator concentrated on their task, hoping to shed light on the case. Meanwhile, another team downloaded and analyzed Mr. Hovanek's dashcam footage. This vital video would soon reveal details about what happened just before his disappearance. allegedly due to his seemingly innocent wife. Each frame of the dashcam video had the potential to show the hidden problems in their relationship. Now, this tension was not visible, but could soon unravel the story Miss Hovanek had crafted for police. As investigators pieced things together, the image of a perfect home life began to break apart, revealing the reality underneath. Local police and the FBI, now equipped with new evidence, returned to the Hovanek home to confront Miss Hovanek with the unsettling truth. Everything she had said up to that point was a complete lie. Then they brought her in for a second interview at the police station. Until that point, she had pretended to be innocent, acting like a helpless victim in the storm of suspicion. However, when they confronted her with proof that the dashcam had recorded the day of the incident at her mother's garage, capturing everything before the vehicle silenced when she turned off the key, she had no way to go. No more lies, only the truth, could she say. Now the truth she had tried so hard to hide was getting closer, ready to reveal the dark secrets of her life.
You're watching MNN, the men's channel.
As her fabricated story started to crumble, Miss Hovanek revealed a shocking truth. She had given her husband M99 Endorphin. Now this strong and controlled substance is about 1,000 times more potent than morphine. It's mainly used in veterinary medicine to tranquilize large animals like either rhinoceroses or elephants, and during medical procedures or transport, not for human use at all. Miss Amanda Hovanek, identified as a mastermind behind these devastating events, received a staggering sentence of 40 years in prison. Upon her eventual release, she will face 10 years of supervised parole, a testament to the severity of her actions. Furthermore, she was ordered to shoulder the financial burden of restitution, a staggering sum of over $2 million, highlighting the extensive damage inflicted upon victims whose lives will never be the same. In past episodes, I pointed out that situations like this rarely have true winners. If Ms. Hovanek had taken a moment to look at the results of the previous 56 cases on her show Killer Wives, she would have seen a harsh truth. The wife often with help from others almost always gets caught and goes to prison for a very long time. Meanwhile, the husband suffers a worse fate. His life ends tragically, and many of these men die many years younger than they would have. Now, these incidents leave children vulnerable, often without proper care, and they may end up in the state's custody unless caring relatives step in to take them. The hardest part is the emotional turmoil children must face as they try to return to a life of normalcy. They carry the heavy burden of a traumatic past that changes their future forever. For Killer Wives, this is Charles Rivers. Good night.